Hey folks, it is the Nutty Knife Guy and his co-host Jolly Roger. First off, I am going to get out to the war post today, but if my voice sounds a little funny or I seem like I'm not all here, I'm fighting a massive sinus infection and I've got so many pills in me that I rattle when I walk. But the problem is, when I lay down, my sinuses just go crazy and my head throbs and I can't sleep. So I figured if I was going to suffer, I may as well suffer and do a knife review at the same time. Now, what I'm showing you today is the Combat Ready brand CBR 113 made in China D-Guard fighting knife. Now, this is an $11 knife, and for $11 at first glance it's not too bad, and I've had pretty good luck with the Combat Ready brand, which is why when I needed $11 to get me over free shipping at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, I think it was Smoky Mountain Knife Works where I got this, but anywhere, I needed to get over shipping. I figured $11 for a knife that looks like this. I really like the design of this knife. I wish it was made better, because I just really like the look of it, and it is fun to play with. But this is my third Combat Ready knife, Combat Ready brand knife. Not to say that it is actually Combat Ready, because it's not. But I have this Combat Ready sub-hilt, which I can't remember how much I paid for. I think it was in the neighborhood of $15. And it is quite nice. It's sub-hilt, which gets at least 3 points just for that. At 3 out of 10. So I reviewed this knife, and I like this knife. And I have a Combat Ready Karambit. I've had this since well before that I started this channel, so it has not been reviewed, but I really should, because I think this knife was $13, and for that price it is really good, really well. I would consider EDCing this, except for the sheath that came with it. It was decent quality too, but it didn't have the carry method that I wanted. But this is an excellent knife for the price you're getting, and it's a good knife at any price. So I was a little disappointed with this knife I'm reviewing, which again is the CBR 113. And the reason for that is, as soon as I picked it up, it felt too light. So immediately I'm thinking it's not full-length tang. And with my handy dandy high-tech tang detector, this is a couple of pretty strong magnets that I taped together for the purpose of tang testing, you will see that it sticks fine as long as it's here. And then when it gets to about here, it doesn't want to stick anymore. So we're looking at a tang that comes down to about 1/3. The grommets are aluminum, so they don't stick. But then you get down in the middle and you're getting no pull whatsoever until you get down to the pommel, where I assume that the D-Guard goes in there for a little bit. And you get some attention here. You get some attachment here, but not much. So you're looking at a tang that goes about 3/4 of the way down. Now my question about that is, did they drill a hole in the tang and put the grommets through the hole, or did they put a notch in the tang this way and fit the tang down over the grommets? Because if they did that, tang down over the grommets. I don't know if that, when I said that was, because they did that, you swing this too hard and it's going to become a projectile. So we'll find out now. Donnie B. All Day, the great one over on his channel, a couple of weeks ago reviewed this very knife. And it passed all his tests. He still did not recommend this knife for reasons I'll get into. And he's harder on knives than me. But I wanted to, first of all, I want to get out there and test this because like I said, I'm really crazy about this design. If they made it a true full tang and made it out of, say, something like 1095 steel, I would gladly pay $50, $60 for this. But this is an $11 knife. So the tang, the D-guard is all right. It is a little small, especially if you're going to use it with gloves. But it would serve its purpose. It would give you some hand protection. It's not really made for punching. You could use this for field work. It's got a nice little choil here. It came sharp. I don't have any way of showing you right now. I got like 6 knives for Christmas, and I've been playing with them. This is not a Christmas present. I bought this, but I've been playing with them, so I have like no armor here to shave up. It's like that a lot. I play with my knives a lot, and I sharpen them a lot. But and nothing else, it's a good looking piece, so I hope I don't tear it up too bad. The sheath is your typical budget sheath. Probably better constructed than most. Got a couple of rivets. It'll do the job. This one I think you could actually take into the field. Fits it pretty well. It's got decent retention without the snap. It's got a loop that's well secured. So, yeah, adequate. So, that's about it for the description. Let's go out to the war post. Alright, we're at the war post. Really nice day. It is being wasted on a day with a sinus infection. But we'll see what the combat ready D-guard can do. First, the water bottle test. Okay, got a pretty good cut in there. Got a very nice cut on that one. And now the only thing that's holding that is a little bit of label. It really wants to hang on. Okay, that was actually a lot of fun, but I got wet and it's cold. Okay, let's see if she breaks on the war post. That's a big miss. There's another big miss. That didn't miss. See what happens when I twist. It's already doing better than the last straight I tested. Starting to feel a little bite on the D-guard. Gotta get out to the war post more. Yeah, right here where the finger indentation is biting, the D-guard is biting into this finger really, really nice. Long-term use, that would be a real problem. Okay, with some really good wax. See if I don't cut myself on this D-guard. Well, everything is still tight. I've got no edge damage. The tip held up. 11 bucks. Wow. We'll go downstairs for the wrap up. Well, I gotta say, even though I saw it survive Donnie B all day, I am surprised at how well this thing held up. No edge damage, it's still good and sharp. The point's okay, it didn't even scratch the finish. Even going through that milk jug, which usually can scratch up a finish really easy. Now you saw it cuts pretty well. Considering I haven't really practiced doing that type of thing really in a long time now since it got cold. But there it is. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to say I misspoke in the introduction. What I meant to say, I did not meant to say what it said 3/4 of the way down. That would be good, but that's not what I meant. It's more like 1/4 to 1/3 of the way down on the tang. My mistake. Now, it held up swimmingly, but as I said, right here, when I'm holding up, it did have a tendency to really bite in. The edges of the D-guard are kind of sharp. I did compensate that later on when I was doing the hard swings by choking down a little bit, but realistically, they call this a fighting knife. Realistically, that's not the way you're going to be gripping it. You're not, first of all, you're probably not going to be able to adjust your grip in the middle of a violent encounter with a Lizard Man Zombie Ninja. So, there's that. Other than that, it does feel good in the hand. And honestly, if you wanted to use that, if you just take some like tool tape or even black electrical tape and just wrapped it around the inside of this, just wrapped it around this part, that would probably stop the problem with biting. Bottom line, can I recommend the knife? No. It held up this time, and everything is still good and tight. But my worry is, how is this knife constructed? As I said, if they drew holes and put it through the tang, even if the tang only goes 1/3 of the way down, or even 1/4 of the way down, you would have something physical stopping this blade from coming out of the handle. On the other hand, I've seen knives that I actually broke in my youth. Cheap knives like this one that I used to buy all the time when I was a kid. And I've seen them broken where instead of having the hole, they have a notch. And if you have the notch, this is a notch at the end of the blade in the tang, right? And then they take and they fit down over the grommet or over the pin instead of having something like this, which the pin goes through. If the grommet is solid, then the blade is just not going to fly out of the handle. On the other hand, if they just use the notch and glued the scales around it, then a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, when that glue starts to give way, because you got to know, $11 knife, that is not going to be really good glue. You're swinging around one day and the blade goes flying and you hear a scream where it stops. And then you're having to explain to yourself, the law enforcement, is why your knife blade is sticking in your neighbor or your neighbor's pet. Now, if the good people at Combat Ready, or whatever factory that makes this and slaps the Combat Ready name on it, would like to tell me exactly how this knife is constructed, or somebody feels like cutting open this knife and finding out, please let me know. But because of that, even though it held up very nicely, and I have to say, this blade steel is probably 440C, and it's actually a good 440C. My biggest reservation about this knife is, how is this blade attached to the handles? And that reservation is enough to make it dangerous enough that I could not recommend this knife, unless you just want it for a toy. You're going to use it for light practice if you're into Filipino martial arts, or, you know, frontier reenacting. I don't know if this would go frontier reenacting, but, or some sort of edged weapon art or fighting system, and you want something that looks pretty cool, and you're just going to use light practice cutting air with it. Yeah. Or you just want it because it looks cool. But as a knife where you're going to take camping, or a trail knife, or even a fighting knife, which in fighting knives really don't have to be all that robust to get the job done if it's a pure fighter. But I can't recommend it for any of those roles because I just don't know how long it will hold up. You know, I could have been 2 whacks out there from the blade coming out. We don't know. And because you don't know, you can't bet your life on it. And even if it's a camp knife, you can't trust it to perform necessary tasks for your well-being and comfort. Not sorry about it. It is fun. It does handle well, and it did surprisingly well. You know, I keep saying that I might buy another copy of a knife, and I haven't done it yet. Well, I haven't said that I was going to do it. I was thinking about it. Always say I'm thinking about it. But it would be interesting to just buy another one of these and test it to failure. Right. I'm really interested to see if this thing was going to hold up. As I said, the other 2 Combat Ready knives, brand knives I really like. And I like this one. I just wish it just wasn't so questionable in construction. Okay, that's all there is. Except to leave you with my usual admonishment. 2. Draw your knives only in just purpose. Sheathe them only with honor, and remember that without knives, life would be dull and pointless. I bid you goodbye.